Well, hello and welcome to this impromptu live. I decided, you may have seen it actually, after trying out a live a couple of days ago where the sound and vision was, particularly the vision wasn't good. The camera was freezing and juddering, or at least the feed was. So I've been looking up what might have been the cause of that, and hopefully have adjusted it. I've tried a couple of little test recordings. It seems to be okay, but really the only way to try it is to go and do it, which is what I'm doing here. But rather than just say, hey, this is a test, I thought that I'd try out another, I suppose, approach. I've used this before, but not with this particular setup, where we can scroll through an article rather than just show you slides of it or photographs of it. And I'll hopefully be able to look at this in terms of the recording, to look at the quality of sound and vision, and indeed content. So here you'll see that I've got a little graphic, or I hope you can see it. I can't actually check that on YouTube at the moment. I haven't figured out a way. It says building an ethical company, and it's from Harvard Business Review. And what I want to do is to scroll down a little bit within this article and pick out some bits and pieces. Now, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to read all of the article. I'm only going to read a fraction of it. And if you're interested, as I generally say on these types of videos, then give this article a read, have a look at it and consider what the authors are saying, because I know that it can actually take quite a lot of time and thought to write an article, and also there's a bit of a process to get it out there and get it published, so to speak. So we need to reward people for their hard work. But I wanted just to pick out a couple of things. I'm thinking here, of course, about ethics and leadership, and I'm thinking about it against the backdrop of what we see around us and what we've seen the last few years. Those people who maybe spring to mind in business, or come to mind in terms of the world stage generally, and of course within that group, that cadre of leaders who are well known are politicians. But I thought I'd focus on business as a kind of construct, as perhaps a lens through which we can look at all leaders, and we can look at ourselves as well, of course, because I believe that we all have a role to play. We're all leaders in that sense. We can all lead ourselves, and we can all input to society, and maybe literally into a business or an organization. So you'll see here, it says people don't enter the workforce with a fixed moral character. I think some might, but I think I also get the point of the authors. Just as employees can nurture or neglect their skills and abilities over time, they can learn to be more or less ethical. Absolutely agree with that. Yet rather than take a long-term view of employees' moral development, many organizations treat ethics training as a one-time event. This is true. And it's kind of silly when you think about it, often limiting it to the onboarding process. Hey, we're ethical. Look at this. Here's our values. It's on the wall in the canteen, big poster, you can't miss it, and it's on some screensavers as well. So we're ethical. Well done. And then the article continues, if they do address ethics thereafter, it may be only by espousing codes of conduct or establishing whistleblower hotlines, which is a good thing. It is a bad thing that we need whistleblowers, isn't it? Shouldn't everyone be interested in the ethics of the culture within which they reside? But anyway, such steps may curb specific unethical actions, but they don't necessarily help employees develop as moral people. Absolutely true. So very good point made there. And I wonder also, as I scroll down here, what politicians get in terms of training. A lot of them are lawyers, not all, but it is an interesting thought. They must. There are all sorts of codes, but maybe there's a way around What is it? It says in Pirates of the Caribbean, those aren't rules, they're guidelines. Ethical learning doesn't happen by rote. Employers should foster an environment that encourages workers to become more ethical by practicing moral reflection. Absolutely agree. And within this article, there's a part where they really expand on that idea. I'm not going to read it all here, but they expand on the idea of reflection. And I've said for years that one of the differences between a supervisor and a manager and a leader is that for the leader to be good, they must reflect. They have to reflect. One could strongly argue, of course, so does the supervisor and so does the manager. But I guess the angle that I was coming at that from when I talked about it a couple of years ago is that if leaders don't reflect on their behaviours and consider what they've done, then there is the capacity that they don't learn, they don't adjust, and they don't listen to their conscience. One could argue some don't have a conscience, but for the moment, let's stick to those who do. So reflection with leaders, I think, is important. And a bit of an experience being a teacher, which I agree with. And there we have there, create a safe place for reflection. But as I said, I'm not going to get into it particularly here. And then I like this part, institutionalized group discussions about ethics. Do we have enough discussions about ethics in business and team amongst politicians, by politicians? They'll talk about it. And the leaders who bestride the world stage talk about it, but what goes on behind the scenes? And skip past that. And then this bit, focus on serving others. And what I think that we can see there is something that I've talked long and hard about and still do, at the sake of being, at the risk, I should say, of being boring, but for the sake of, I suppose, highlighting something which I think is often at the core of what can go wrong in societies, in businesses, in teams, in cultures, and in certain parts of certain governments. We need to focus on serving. So if I read they were pressing that button, building a truly ethical culture involves more than just helping people to avoid doing bad things. That's really important. I really liked that line. And therefore I'm going to repeat it. Building a truly ethical culture involves more than just helping people to avoid doing bad things. Just that one half a sentence, part of a sentence, is so important. Because if you think about it, what do we often taught ourselves? What do people say? Well, I didn't do anything bad, or we were within the guidelines. What about the rules? And we didn't break any laws. But okay, was it ethical? And just because you didn't actively, with intent, do anything bad, doesn't mean to say that it's ethical. So it's not avoidance of the bad. There's going to be something else. And it suggests there, of course, with the rest of that sentence. It also requires empowering them to do good things. Absolutely, 100%. Research has shown that serving other people can reduce self-focus and raise awareness of moral concerns. It also contributes to psychological flourishing. Studies have demonstrated a link between volunteer service and improved mood and well-being. And then it goes on to talk about universities, which is great. It's fine. I'm glad that universities are doing that. But I think that we need to think about it more in, well, almost any situation within any social group, which, as I've suggested, could include a culture, a team. This focus on serving, I think, I'm not sure, maybe we've lost a bit of it over the years, but it doesn't mean to say that there aren't gallant, decent, hardworking people out there whose job it is to serve. Those who get paid to serve, to help. In health, for example, many of them don't get rewarded in the way that they should and don't get recognised in the way that they should. But that's probably another story for another time. At the moment, for me, this concept of serving is absolutely essential. So I'm not going to stay on long on this live. If you are watching, hello and thank you. But what I'll leave you with are these few thoughts. If you look around, how many people who are in positions of influence, we could call them leaders, maybe they would be called something else, but positions of influence. This could be locally, it could be at a departmental level, a corporate level, it could be a big corporation, it could of course be politicians, it could be the tech experts, some of the technocrats who are around as well. How many do you think do that to serve? Now the good news is, I believe that some of them do that to serve. I believe that some of them actually have a sense of, what am I going to do in my life? At the end of it, when I look back, what will I have achieved? Did I do more good than harm? Did I actually help people with all the breaks, the wealth, the intelligence, the skills that I had? Did I do that? Or was it something else? Was it self-serving? Was it self-centered? Was it selfish? So I do think there are people who are like that. But my goodness, there are an awful lot of people out there that I see who I don't think it even crossed their mind. I think it's about them. I think it's about, well, when I get that position, when I can preen about being the first this or the most rich that, the greatest success in. And it's fine to be rich. I'm not saying you shouldn't be rich. Be rich if you want. It would be nice to be a bit richer. I'm not saying don't be successful. And I'm not saying don't be the first in things to achieve certain things. Or what I am saying is that if that's all the focus, then these people are, I think, just facsimiles of what I would consider to be a decent human being. I think they're avatars and not very good ones. There's almost a grotesque quality to them. They're like caricatures. Are you really someone who should be in that position? Are we really looking to you to give us information, advice, guidance? And many of them, of course, are. Well, they project themselves, I should say, as the arbiter of morality and decency, whilst being behind the scenes something very different. And so when you look at these people, to me, I think part of ethics, as it was suggested in that article, is doing good. It's not just not doing bad, it's doing good. How many of them are out there genuinely doing good in a selfless way as opposed to a selfish way? How many of them, if they applied themselves and really cared and either decided to serve or reminded themselves that they were there to serve, would and could actually make a huge difference and begin to improve the planet in many ways, and certainly a lot of the businesses, the teams, the organizations that they work and live within, and that many of us work and live within or are impacted by that. Anyway, I didn't want to make this too long. I'll have a look at technically how it works or didn't, as the case may be, and improve perhaps for the next time. So it was a bit of a test, but I hope some food for thought. And with the backdrop of the US elections and the recent memory of the UK elections, how many of those people should we consider to be an individual who's ethical and understands the need to serve? Question, homework. Please discuss. Anyway, I better go and let you go on with your evening, if it is evening where you are. Thanks for tuning in again, and soon